people always understood that Big Pharma kind of had its tentacles into politics, and they've learned that it's also been involved in media and influencing the news. But I think a bigger takeaway now is how much it's been entrenched in our medical establishment, meaning the doctors that you trust, the scientific journals that they rely on, thinking that they're getting unbiased information. Even in medical schools, the pharmaceutical industry is teaching what our doctors are learning, and the continuing medical education classes that doctors take after they become doctors. I think the ethical violations that have been committed by some esteemed researchers who are funded by the federal government, and the federal government has known about these things, and they've escaped often without punishment or without anything meaningful happening. There are shocking accounts and a long history of these things happening in this country in a way that's gone really unnoticed to a large extent, at least by the media and those that should be reporting on it. One case I'll be talking about today is the case I call the baby oxygen trials, where premature infants were experimented on in a federal study involving some of the most prestigious institutions in this country, with the mothers later claiming they were never told their babies were in a study, they did not give informed consent. Some of the babies died as a result and some were blinded as a result. And if you can believe it, just one little anecdote from the consent form, if any of the women had been given it or had read it, the babies were put on oxygen monitors designed to give false readings so that the hospital personnel would not be tempted to adjust their oxygen for the good of the babies. They kept them in a range for the good of the study. So that's just one example of kind of like you can't believe this is really happening. You have to get yourself informed and talk about it. I think the one good thing that came out of the COVID era was the guys that were trying to manipulate our information were so audacious about it that for the first time, some people who weren't really paying attention started to pay attention and never considered themselves activists, but sort of became activists for their health. And they've been asking questions ever since then. And now there are a whole new group of resources, doctors that have gone independent as a result of the COVID experience, and people trying to create those independent studies that look at the causes of our diseases and chronic disorders, when really for decades there's only been emphasis on treating this stuff with expensive pharmaceuticals.